You have just stepped into the Midlife Revolution, your space to ignite possibility, redefine purpose, and embrace the power that comes with age. Co-hosted by yours truly, Coach Wayne.
And I'm Coach Stacy M. Lewis. And we're two seasoned coaches focused on the midlife community of color. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. In a world that sometimes forgets the power and the wisdom that comes with age, we're here to ignite a revolution and rewrite the narrative of this incredible journey.
So, whether you're navigating career shifts, rediscovering passions, or challenging the status quo, this is your space. So buckle up. Let's dive into the Midlife Revolution.
Aha, good morning. It's May the 21st, and so we're full steam ahead into spring. Here in Florida, we're having really steamy weather, and there is an alert out for folks to be hydrated. I don't know how it's feeling where you are, but we're bringing the heat today with another episode of Midlife Revolution. My name is Coach Wayne, and I work with men through midlife to help them move into their second half to ensure that it becomes their best half. My co-host today is the one and the only, the great Coach Stacy M. Lewis. Good morning, Stacy.
Good morning, Wayne. I got a shimmy in my 60s. I'm like, wait. Good morning. It is always such a joy to be here. It's another Tuesday. I don't know about you, but I just feel like time is really moving, and I appreciate what we're doing here because at least I feel like I'm really making good, productive use of my time, especially on Tuesdays, as we really are here to just share the gifts that we've been given and help others. My name is Stacy M. Lewis, as it says in the little purple square, and I have the honor of being a nonprofit executive as well as a coach. My focus community is that of midlife women of color, because I believe that it is our time to thrive in confidence, in good health, and in prosperity. And so I'm excited to be here, Wayne, and we have a couple of our favorites hanging out in our listener viewership lounge. Good morning to both Sis Kelly and Sis Audrey. It is always a pleasure to have you here, and welcome to the Midlife Revolution.
Yep, good morning. This is graduation season, Stacy, and what we talk about is, in effect, a form of graduation. We're graduating through stages, and midlife is a stage that I welcome because I was, as they say in Jamaica, fool when I was a kid. You know what I mean? So as I graduate, I think we move from aging to what I like to call saging, and we are welcoming and encouraging everybody who is stepping up in age to look forward to it because it is a time to celebrate.
It really is a great time. We often forget how much we've really learned in this life. I won't ask you about your Jamaica excursions. Growing up, I look forward to meeting maybe some siblings one day when they can tell the real tale. Maybe engaging your wife in some conversation about what she knows, but we'll keep this professional in hopes of serving others, because you and I can cut up at any time. So I know today we're going to really talk about common errors in thinking, and to your point of graduation, really recognizing that as we have matured, as we have learned, as we have fallen forward, we can more easily recognize the common errors in thinking, and we still deal with them. All of us are really privy to having some thought life issues, those ants, those automatic negative thoughts, and really just some ways that we respond internally to the happenstances of our day and of our life. So Where would you like to begin, sir?
Let's look at what we call, I like to call this stinking thinking, the way that we get stuck because of what's happening in the head, just the way we think. And one of the ones that is very common, especially as we think we are more experienced, is that all or nothing thinking, where we think in terms of black or white. For example, getting started as an entrepreneur, I had to get the perfect website. I had to
Mm,
have all of certain things done or I wasn't ready.
that's
And I had a coach that said to me, it's better to just get it done than get it perfect. So the idea that it had to be a certain way was stopping me from progress. How about you, Stacy? That all or nothing thinking. Has it been
that.
a pain for you?
I love that example because I was right there with you, right? As a seasoned professional, as an executive, I've learned over the years that perfection is a trap. Yet, when it came to starting my own business and really wanting to put myself out there in a different way, the all or nothing thinking was like, no, this has to be perfect. No, this color is not right. No. And at the end of the day, it's like done is much better than perfect. And so I encourage all of our community to just remember that sometimes it really is about getting it done. It's never, ever going to be perfect.
Another way of saying that is to trust the process and enjoy the ride. Now, let's move into something called filtering.
Mm,
Filtering, so the world is as it is, but for each of us, depending on our background, the way we were raised, our culture, our race, our gender, our language, our education, all these things impact and act as filters from what we know as reality to how we perceive it and interpret it. And so we filter the world, and it's not necessarily the truth, but it's our truth. One of the things that we have to be mindful of is how we're filtering and the filters that we put on so that that's what we do as coaches, Stacy. We see blind spots because we know people have filters.
yeah, and it's so easy. I think even at this stage of both our professional and our personal lives, it can be very easy to become myopic or solely focused on the one issue, the one thing that didn't go according to plan, or the one um, thing you said that didn't come out the way you intended, and we just mentally hone in on that and see everything else through that lens. And so one of my tips and something that I do to myself is I say to myself, is that true? Because we often can dwell on this thought, right, through this mental filter that is not, to your point, based in truth. Is that true? Is that true? Maybe I did say whatever I said, yet if I apologized, why am I still dwelling on it? If I'm thinking that one thought really is the only thought, it's like, is that true? So I love the idea of mental filtering, or the concept of mental filtering, and phrased this way.
Yep, yep. There's another one that I can speak to, and that is discounting the positive. That's a flawed way of thinking. And I know, for example, I used to be, when we talk about trying to be humble, somebody says, "Hey, Wayne, you look good in that suit." And I'm like, "Oh, this little old thing here?" We discount the positive, and so we find a way of always looking at what's not working, what could be better. And we have to recognize, especially as we age, that we have a lot of outings where we scored big wins or even small ones. So let us not discount the positive in the way of our thinking.
Well, and when someone says, that you look great in that suit today, what is it? It's actually starting to identify what is it that makes you want to say, nah, this old thing, or, oh, thanks, what is it that stops you from just saying, thank you? Story done. Thank
Story
you.
done. You look like you've
Right?
been hanging out with Jamaicans, Stacy.
Excuse me, there are other West Indian countries that but we got it. But that's it, right? It's just saying that, okay, thank you, and not really downplaying, especially when someone else is trying to acknowledge the positive in you. I think it's a great opportunity for us to just do a little mental work.
Absolutely. Mental work. So there's this emotional reasoning piece as well. And what that speaks to is we talked about it being in our feelings, being in our head, we sometimes get stuck in our feelings. You know, I feel that being black stops me from
Mm.
getting a promotion in this place. And if we feel that way, we have this emotional feeling about ourselves as people of color. For example, it gets in the way of our success. It gets in the way of our progress. It gets in the way of our moving forward because we're moving with emotions. We're tied into emotions. We see this a lot too in terms of relationships, right? Where people get caught in their feelings and are not really responding from a logical or even a spiritual level, trapped in
Yeah,
the
I think I agree. And one way that I've seen emotional reasoning show up, at least in my client audience, is that of hopelessness. This feeling, these kind of taking these feelings because of their situation, because they're not where they want to be, or because they wanted to accomplish something and they haven't. Sister Audrey says those limiting beliefs, right? That those feelings of hopelessness where they're just stuck, and really needing to acknowledge what the real source is and be able to counter, identify opportunities to counter those negative emotions in ways that help them to move forward.
I want to touch a little bit more about emotions because when it comes to uh, men of color,
Mm.
we talked about emotional intelligence a few episodes ago. We have not been duly trained, coached, brought up to deal with our emotions in a healthy way. And one of the things that we oftentimes do is, Audrey was saying to me that men, she's a clinical psychologist, that men typically know anger, fear as their major ways of emotion. And of course, we hide from fear, and usually it comes out as anger. And I think there's another one. But if we get caught up in those sort of emotions, you can see the kind of disaster awaiting us, right? Because we're not allowing ourselves to fully explore other avenues of reasoning. We're caught up with those toxic negative emotions.
Wayne, there's really so much to say around that, and thinking about kind of the historic and systemic um, framing and training, and oppression that has taken place. And so when you say that, men and men of color in particular, haven't been trained, I think often women haven't been trained, to really acknowledge and and couch their emotions in ways that are healthy. And so, there's so much baggage from that. Either you are, you've been trained to silence your voice, right? Boys don't cry, and girls shouldn't be too emotional, and all of these kind of historic trainings, teachings, oppressions, um, that have really stifled us in many ways. And so we can probably do a whole episode on, tackling the emotions from the perspective of upbringing and culture and training, because I believe that there's a lot there.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Overgeneralization. So, to an extent, that type of thinking is somewhat related to filtering. And what do I mean? You've heard folks saying to each other or to others, you never do this, you always do this.
Mm,
All
mm-hmm,
people.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's over generalization. And you can imagine how that would come across as offensive to others if you're saying, you always do this. And I've been guilty. I know we've all probably been there, but I speak for myself. And it comes sometimes at the end of frustration or anger. But we do this too when we're getting up in age. We start saying and seeing the world, all young people.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. We start categorizing folks like cattle, just putting them in a group and herding them. And so I think that's an important distinction to make, that we cannot generalize groups or people. Stereotypes. We don't want to be stereotyped.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about overgeneralization is that it's often negative. We're often overgeneralizing to the negative, right? You never clean your room, you never pick up your clothes. Young people never listen to older people. Older people always, something negative. And it's funny to me how we don't often overgeneralize in the positive, right? Like I'm always successful, even if it doesn't always look like it, or I'm always learning, or so many opportunities there that are there. If we're going to overgeneralize something, let's overgeneralize it in a way that benefits us and benefits others. And the reason that it is, one of these emotional kind of common wrong thoughts is that we're so focused on the negative in the overgeneralization. So really taking those opportunities to shift that, because nothing is ever always and never ever.
True. Nothing is always. I
We'll have
wanted
to
to,
catch the replay for that one.
yeah, I wanted to add something which we can take up another level in another discussion, but in terms of those types of filtering, there is over generalization, and there's another piece, two other pieces. I just want to mention it briefly, and then we can handle that in another session perhaps. And one is distortion,
Mm,
where we distort reality, right? We frame it or reframe it based, and sometimes we do that intentionally, which is co-lying or manipulation. But a lot of times we distort reality if we're telling the story about an accident down the road and the cop says what happened. Typically, all five persons there are going to report it with distortions. And that is a form of stinking thinking. And then there is deletion as well, just to throw those in the group, same group, since we're touching on overgeneralization, Stacy. And in deletion, we can't process all the bits of information. It would be overload. We would burn out. So we delete things, and it makes sense to be safe, right? You have to delete some things. You can't process every single thing. So I just wanted to throw those out. And then, Stacy, we want to move to jump into conclusions. I'll let you get started with jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to this. And, it's when we take those attributes, those attitudes, or those beliefs and really apply them in ways that may not be based on facts at all. The jumping to conclusions means that we're not taking any time to gather the facts or to really clearly assess the situation, that we're just assuming. We are really just leaping into what we believe someone has done or someone thinks. And what I think is interesting about the confluence of distortion and jumping to conclusions is that we can sometimes take our distorted thoughts about what we believe somebody thinks or what we believe somebody is saying, or what we even feel about ourselves that may not be truth, but may be based on some distortion, and then jump to conclusions about what that means somebody thinks about us, or what that means somebody is saying about us, or how that means someone perceives us. There's just so much there around jumping to conclusions, just and never has it served us well. And I think at this stage of our lives, we know that we want to be operating based on what has served us well. And jumping to conclusions never serves you well.
Kind of fortune telling, right? Fortune telling, jump to conclusion. And then there's the other piece, which is predicting the future. Future is not here, but we jump to conclusions. This is going to happen. I'm not going to say this to you because I know you're going to react. And those are flawed ways of thinking. When we start aging, unfortunately, sometimes we get caught into the act of, I know that already, right? And as a result of that, we close the windows to learning, to continual learning, which then creates a problem because now we think we know it all, so we can fortune tell and predict the future. So that's a flawed thinking that we should be mindful of, all stages, but as we graduate. And then there's personalization and blame. They're the opposites of each other. And there's a great book that I recommend, and that is the 4 Agreements. It talks about taking things personally. And there are others. But personalization is where we get stuck in our ego, man. It's always about us. And the truth of the matter is, though we are important, other people got lives and issues that's beyond us. So we don't have to always be pointing the finger at, oh, you're talking to me, it's about me. We got to let that go, that personalization. It's going to be toxic.
Yeah, what I find interesting about personalization and blame is that the foundation is often pride, where we are really projecting and perceiving and acting based on our own pride, which is just flawed. And so really, blaming ourselves or blaming others is usually what we're doing when we don't want to take responsibility for our own reality, or we make everything about us. It's you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter what I'm sharing, just make everything about us. And that level of personalization also does not open the door to healthy relationship, healthy conversation. If I realize I'm engaging in a conversation with you and I'm talking about me, yet every opportunity you have to speak, you're turning it around to talk about you, making it personal to you, I'm turned off. I'm no longer going to be able to engage because it's very clear that you are personalizing everything. Everything is about you. Your pride is really driving the show, and there's no room for me.
That's where you got to call on the coach. Yeah, they help people to redirect you and look at those blind spots, those stuck in ways of thinking. Stacey, personalization is not to say that we're saying to folks you abdicate your sense of responsibility and accountability. Now,
Yeah.
that's not what we're saying. We're just saying stop being so thin-skinned. And on the other hand, blame, like you said, pointing the finger. There's an old saying: when you point the finger this way, three are pointing back at you. And
Mm-hmm.
so be careful where you point and when you point. Stop blaming and judging others without due course and cause, especially if you're a leader. If you're a leader, the buck stops here. Remember that. So before you go out and start fixing the world, fix yourself. And lastly, Stacy, as it's just 11:26, we have a few more minutes, but lastly, let's talk a little bit about labeling, and we can look at the comments too and see if there's anything that in there that we should address.
Well, I think that the labeling piece, right? Our audience are pretty savvy people in knowing that labeling means that you are really assigning or painting something with an extremely broad brush. That it could be you, it could be focused on you. I think common labeling is I'm worthless, or I never get this right, or I'm a failure, or I'm a loser. There's that kind of labeling. Of course, there's the, I'm everything my hand touches turns to gold. There's that kind of affirmation labeling. But the labeling is usually very broad, and we do that often without even being aware of it. And I think the beauty of this conversation is to encourage our community to really be aware of some of these common errors in thinking, so that as they come up, they can be confronted internally, so that we're not really pouring that out into the world.
Yeah, yeah. I like to talk about this, Stacy. The way we think affects the way we feel. The way we feel will affect the way we act, and therefore it creates certain habits. Those habits creates an outcome for us, which, folks, becomes who we are, our personal realities, our identities. So if we start with the way we think and our beliefs and all of that mumbo jumbo, we can direct ourselves in a way that allows midlife to really be the golden days, the best lives.
It is the time. I mean, all of the things that we've been through, all of the hardships, all of the successes, they should not be limited to a label like I'm a failure, or I'm worthless, um or even, I'm the greatest thing that ever lived. That is not what our life should be limited to. There's so many opportunities, and as we work on ourselves, our own mental health, and recognize, to your point, you were sharing that, kind of that what you think then results in or presents in your behavior, which then impacts the people that you interact with. And we're really here to change lives. We're here to make impact. We're here to do good work. And being stuck behind a label or sticking others behind the label is only a hindrance to that good work.
Stace, I'm going to plug shamelessly for folks to get in touch with us if they are trying to decipher if coaching is for them. They can call for a free discovery call, no obligations. Those our handles will be at the very end of the outro. But Stace, I don't know if you want to leave your phone number or a way to contact you verbally right now before we get out of here.
Well, I appreciate that, Sir Wayne. Like it says on the screen, I'm on LinkedIn, as well as you are welcome to visit my website, thestacymlewis.com. This is always the highlight of my week, spending this time with you, trying to or working to share our gifts with those in our LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube communities. We're really just here to be of service. And so we appreciate everyone in our listening audience, our viewing audience. We ask that you would like, share, comment, all of that good stuff. Most importantly, if there's someone you believe would be blessed or be encouraged by this episode or any one of the Midlife Revolution episodes, please make sure you share it with them.
And I'm Coach Wayne, Coach VIP at Wayne Dawson, that's DAWSON, at VIPTransformativeLiving.com. Hey, Stacy, we out of here. We are out of air, aren't we?
And there you have it, folks. This week's episode of the Midlife Revolution. Hey, we truly appreciate you spending this time in this space with us. Join us next week at the same time as we dive into relevant topics and present solutions to spark new thinking and empower your midlife journey.
Don't forget, if today's episode resonated with you, share your thoughts and suggest topics in the comments. And of course, remember to subscribe, share, like, and hit that notification bell. You are the Midlife Revolution. I'm Coach Stacy, and I'm cheering you on.
And I'm Coach Wayne, and I'll see you at the top.